I was in Chicago at the NASW National Conference for a couple of reasons, doing some podcasting, but I was also a part of this panel about social media podcasting and all of this stuff. But I'm going to rewind a little bit before the panel. So I don't even know when this was, but several months before the conference in Chicago, we had saw some advertisement about some awards that the NASW had awarded out to various people. And one of the recipients of those awards, and they're pretty prestigious awards, you know what I mean, from the
Mhm.
NASW, and one of the recipients was Ludacris, Ludacris, the rapper, the actor, rapper, Ludacris. And this is just from the press release. It said, Ludacris is honored with 2025 NASW Award for advancing the public image of social work. And they say that it stems from him playing a social worker on the Netflix film Dashing Through the Snow, where he played a social worker. They say his character exemplifies empathy, problem solving, and dedication to helping families in need. One quick note is Ludacris didn't exactly play the best social worker or the best human in that film. But either way, it was, you know what I'm saying? It's just, he was acting, he was playing a role that somebody else had written
Mhm.
for him, right? And I let that ruminate with me for a while, Ludacris receiving this prestigious social work award. And, it didn't sit well with me. Like, it bothered me and I couldn't let go of it. And so I started thinking about Ludacris. And the biggest part about it is most of his songs come across as anthems, like meaning you want to repeat them. And
Mm.
so I was one of those people up in the club repeating his lyrics. I had a little bit of an idea of what he talks about in his music. And I went back and looked a few of them up. And I'm not going to repeat them on here because I don't even want to put that energy out here. I don't think I could repeat the lyrics without sounding angry or hostile. But to make a long story short, nearly all of his lyrics are about demeaning women, using all the words and all the tropes that you can imagine in the worst ways possible. And I mean that, like the worst ways possible. I don't think you could go any lower in the way that he talks about women. Um, Bragging about violence, senseless violence, things like that. Really, really, really negative lyrics. And as I said, they're anthems, so we're repeating them out loud. And so if you believe in the power of of language and of sound, then it should be troubling, right? You're not only is one person saying these things and putting them out there, but people are listening to them, they're consuming them, whether they intend, to really like replicate the lyrics by making it them by having them anthems as well. So everybody's up in the club and they're repeating them. It's almost like a declaration to the world, an affirmation of sorts. And that's not a good thing from my perspective. It's more than I can really put into language here. But that's not a good thing for people to be declaring those kind of things and to saying them out loud. Furthermore, I just don't think that the man as the rapper, as he portrays himself, at least in public, epitomizes social work values in any way, shape, or form, especially revolutionary social work values. And I was upset, anyways, that they were giving him the award. So you might say, well, what the hell does this have to do with the NASW conference and all of that? So I get there to the conference and they start telling me about the panel and I start receiving more information. They're going to present somebody with an award that's not theirs. And I thought to myself, I was like, good God, I really hope that they're not presenting the award to Ludacris because he's obviously not going to be there at the NASW conference while I'm on the stage. And I told myself, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to say something about it and criticize that if that happens. Lo and behold, that's who they awarded the award to, was Ludacris. Fortunately for me, is that I was able to check myself on my values, value based living and decision making. And I realized that criticizing that in real time and using my space up there in front of everyone to be critical, like I'm doing right now, was not that way I wanted to use my space. And so I wanted to focus more on what I was there for and talk about revolutionary social work and the things that we're trying to build. So I didn't bring it up then. But I want to use my power and my space just to talk about it a little bit here. Um, it really bothers me that they give him this award because I could think of so many other people that care more, that whether in the social work profession or a musician, which we'll get to in a second, there are many more, much more well-deserved people that are pushing forward what was the name of it? The image of social work. There are much more. I could give you a list of people right now that I've interviewed, that I've talked to, that epitomize that award and should have been considered for something like that. And it speaks more to like our celebrity culture and things like that. Just because a celebrity says something or a celebrity does it, then that makes it good. But Ludacris is not a positive celebrity from my perspective anyway. And so that brings us to the episode. This is with Lion Fiyah, aka Ryan Rodriguez. And he's a reggae artist that's been around for decades here in Hawaii. And you might say, well, why are we having a reggae musician from Hawaii on a social work podcast and interviewing him at the NASW National Conference? Well, for the exact reason of Ludacris getting that award. And we want to provide a contrast to that. Long story short, we were cruising around one day not too long ago, and we heard Lion Fiyah on the radio. and it was a song called Royal Vibes.
In a vision.
And with Innovision, and it just, the lyrics were on point. And I mean, there was positive vibes in there. There was positive advice in here that in there, there was positive affirmations. There's like little cultural nuggets and hints of wisdom, whether it's Haile Selassie or, Kanaka Meoli that he was talking about. We have to be wary of the things that we consume in life. I think the same goes to music, and social work should be aware of that. There are plenty of social workers that deserve that award, but if we're talking about musicians that push forward the social work image, then why are we not choosing somebody whose lyrics align with social work values or revolutionary social work values? You know what I mean? And just, I'll just leave it with this. That's why we invited Lion Fiyah on the podcast. And it almost makes me emotional to think about it or to talk about this. But I'm very happy to say that my kids aren't repeating Ludacris's anthems when we're riding around in the car. Instead, they're repeating people like Lion Fiyah. My kids know all the lyrics to Royal Vibes. And so, what a relief that is to think about, and think about what a contrast, between the two sets of lyrics. And so I just want to close with this little part by saying that as social workers, as the NASW, we should have a higher responsibility to uphold the values of social work or revolutionary social work if social work hasn't defined them in general. And if we're going to give an award out to a musician for, pushing forward social work, then it ought to be somebody whose lyrics reflect that. So our revolutionary social work award to music, if we had one, we would give it to Ryan Rodriguez, aka Lion Fiyah.